Just trying to survive and learn to love along the way. By Foreplay on AU3. Episode 31, Chapter 31 of Parents and Interviews. Shouta tries not to worry when 3 of his students don't show up to class. It's especially hard considering one of them is his own son. He nearly sighs in relief when there's a knock on the classroom door and his students are entering, looking guiltily. Only nearly because Izuku is not there with them. They both hand him slips from Recovery Girl and hurry to their seats, withering under his glare. Shouta makes the rest of the class time extra hard for his students, and assigns them homework as he reminds them to give their parents the information about the parent-teacher interviews happening tomorrow after classes. At the end of the period, Shouta waits for all his students to leave before gathering Izuku's things and heading over to the infirmary. He finds them asleep, and lets him be for a moment while he texts his husband to let him know where they are. 5 minutes later, Hizashi is bursting through the doors, a look of concern on his face. Shouta guesses he could have said that Izuku was fine in the text, but where's the fun in that? Hizashi scowls at him as he heads over to the bed. What happened? I have absolutely no idea. Hizashi sighs at his answer and leans over to wake the problem child up. He wakes up quickly and sits up, rubbing his eyes. How in the world did you end up here? Izuku squints up at him before speaking, and he can't help but find the sight adorable. Well, All Might knows that I couldn't do the rescue training race today, so he found a way for me to participate. Shouta almost said something, because he told All Might that Izuku was still healing and could not do anything strenuous, but stopped himself at the sight of his kid's smile. Instead of having the others rescue him, he had me go hide, and they rescued me. A couple of the teams got pretty competitive in the end, and it strained my injuries a little. I also got hurt a bit more, mostly from hitting the side of the building and being pushed through a window, but otherwise I'm fine. Shouta is requesting the footage from All Might immediately, mainly to see how the kid got pushed through a window, but also because it's funny to think that all of his students fighting each other to save Izuku. Alright, problem child, let's go home. The day leading to the dreaded interviews passes without incident, and Shouta sighs remorsefully when the final bell rings. The interviews start in an hour, and he still has a few files to go over. There's not enough time to drive home and back, so they made the decision to let Izuku hide in the teacher's lounge until they could leave. He can feel the problem child trailing him to the lounge. He turns his head just enough to check on the kid, and finds him staring at his feet with a small scowl on his face. The look is about as ill-fitting on his face as it is on his sashes. Izuku had been in a sour mood all day, no doubt because of the interviews. He had accidentally let it slip yesterday that his mother is in jail. He'd also mentioned something about Bakugou, but Shouta had decided not to pry for now. His kid had been dodging questions all day about why his mother is in jail, and where he is staying now. Some of his students did not seem to understand the sensitive nature of the topic. There were a few surprising students, like Kirishima and even Bakugou, who helped him avoid the questions, changing the subject every time they popped up. Shouta holds the door open for Izuku, and he shuffles in, practically throwing himself face first onto the couch. Shouta gives his head a sympathetic pat as he passes by to his desk to review his files. They spend the first few moments in silence, the only sound in the room the soft turning of pages. Shouta opens up his next file and stares at the student photo. Hey, Izuku. His head pops up from the couch, and Shouta takes that as his cue to continue. Can I ask about Bakugou? Izuku gives him a wide-eyed look and nods. Was he the bully that told you to kill yourself? I know he wrecked your notebook. No! Izuku waved his hands around, as if he could ward off the idea completely. He was pretty bad for a while. When he found out what was happening, he was worse, but also better, if that makes sense. Shouta just gives him a confused look as he shakes his head. Well, the bullying was more frequent, but he didn't hurt me as much, and it was only in front of other kids too. It's like he was putting on a show or something. Well, that was an interesting thought. Is there a chance that Bakugou was trying to help Izuku in some weird, twisted way? Alright, thanks, kiddo. The rest of the hour passed far too quickly, and Hizashi is practically dragging him away from his desk. Izuku gives them a small wave as they pass by the couch, where he is now sitting and doing his homework. The door shuts softly behind him, and they head towards one of the gyms, where the parents had been herded. They all had to go through an extensive checkpoint at the gate before being led through the grounds by a teacher. Shouta is grateful he wasn't selected for this task. There's already a lineup of parents with students as his assigned desk when he gets there, and he beckons the first set forward. At least he knows only to see the parents of the homeroom class. He grits his teeth as several parents complain about ridiculous things, and wonders why some of them had even bothered to come. There's only one family in this lineup that is not supposed to be, and that is Mineta and his father. The man begins to yell about how his son didn't deserve to be kicked out of the hero course. Shouta activates his quirk, and the man sits back down, eyes in terror. Your son is lucky he didn't get kicked out of the school for all the stunts he pulled. Did you even bother to look at the transfer notification? Every single issue your son had was outlined in great detail, and trust me when I say he had a lot of them. Now get out of my sight. The man pales and flees, followed quickly by Mineta. The next family in line are the Bakugous. This is bound to go poorly, but at least he didn't have to search them out. Bakugou's mother speaks before they even sitting down. I have no concerns regarding Katsuki, and I doubt you have many either. We all know he's one of the best in the class. Shouta scowls at the straightforwardness, but he doesn't disagree with her. Bakugou is one of his top students, always performing well on paper tests and assignments, as well on physical aspects of the course. My main concern is his anger issues. He's also got a history of bullying that troubles me. Bakugou scowls from between his parents, but doesn't make a sound. Frankly, he was terrible at the start of the year. Somebody must have said something before I got the chance to, because he's definitely calmed down since then. I'd still recommend some sort of anger management therapy so that he can figure out his issues behind the anger. Now, if that's all, I have several other parents to speak to tonight. It's a clear dismissal, but the family doesn't move. He has to wait several moments before the woman speaks. I actually have concerns regarding another student of yours. Why in the world would she have concerns about another student? Is someone bothering Bakugou? Unlikely. He's the type to bully, not be bullied. Shouta raises a brow instead of speaking, prompting her to continue. It's little Izuku. Katsuki tells me Inko's in jail. Bakugou tenses a little, frowning. He wouldn't tell me why, but I know he knows something. His student sinks further into his seat at that. From what Izuku was saying before, Bakugou found out about the abuse years ago. He must have figured it out then, and not said anything. His mother takes Shouta's silence as an indication to continue. I used to be close to the woman, back when the kids were younger, but after Katsuki got his quirk and Izuku didn't, she stopped taking my calls, and stopped letting our sons play together. That made a lot of sense, but doesn't explain everything between the two boys. Shouta knows that there's something else he just has to get to the bottom of. Katsuki came home one day and told me that he didn't like Auntie Inko anymore. When I asked him why, he said that it was because she hurt Izuku. I didn't believe him. He was always making up all sorts of shit back then. So Bakugou had told someone, and they decided he was lying. He figured it out at such a young age. Shouta has no doubt that more people figured it out and just decided not to do anything. How many adults stood by as Izuku was abused? That's not what happened, is it? When I knew Inko, she was such a sweetheart. Unfortunately, I cannot reveal any personal details about another student to you. At least tell me he's safe now. I was hoping to see him tonight, maybe invite him over for dinner afterwards and meet whoever he was living with. Make sure they can take care of him, you know? Shouta can tell that the woman really cares about Izuku, and it makes him almost regret what he's about to do. He is safe now, with a caring family. I don't think dinner is a good idea. Bakugou's mother scoffs at that. Well, why the hell not? God, this woman is pushy. You said so yourself, that you and Inko used to be good friends. Seeing you could trigger a lot of bad memories for him, and he's already been having enough these past few weeks. She looks resigned at that, and sighs before speaking. Of course, Eraserhead. I understand now. Thank you for your time. Bakugou looks relieved as he's dragged away by his mother, and Shouta can't help but feel the same way. Interesting. Okay. I thought that was gonna go way horribly bad. The Mineta thing. Hi. Funny. Haha. Alright, that went better than I thought. So, God. Mitsuki knew. Mitsuki fucking knew. And you know what? At the same time, I can't blame her. Psychology corner here. So, when you are told someone close to you is an awful person, you often don't want to accept that. I know a lot of the times, especially in cancel culture, fucking cancel culture, I fucking hate it. There's a difference between cancel culture and holding someone accountable, and then there's a difference between literal illegal activity, okay? But for the most part, I think cancel culture calls upon people who have done the smallest of shit and then condemns them and ruins their career, while someone who's done something absolutely horrendous and atrocious that should honestly be in jail for it, people do nothing. And they don't put the same effort. It is immensely fucking fucked. Anyways, but moving on, in cancel culture, I see this a lot, where a person is revealed to be a groomer, a horrible person, sex offender, whatever it is. Horrible person, groomer, racist, whatever the fuck it is, they end up being revealed to be that type of person. And then people around them are like, not people around them, but people who are watching are like, oh my god, how can this person that is friends with this horrible person not immediately drop them? Like, oh my god, can't you see they're a horrible person? Drop them! It's not that easy. I hate to break it to you guys, but it's not that easy. Knowing, even that the person who is, your friend, and might have been your friend for literally years, it is not easy for one to drop a person. It is not easy for one to just accept the fact that you put your trust on someone who is a shitty person. It is hard for someone to accept that someone they care about and love is a horrible person, right? And for us, we might only see them for that person who did that horrible thing. But that person knows other parts of that person, and it contradicts what they are seeing online to what they see IRL, It is hard to understand when someone is a horrible person and drop them off so easily. I mean, think about it. People who are literally in abusive relationships don't just leave the person as soon as they start showing signs of being a bad person. They make up excuses. They put up fronts. They say, oh, maybe it's my fault, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. They just weren't having a nice day. They can't accept the fact that the person that, was so sweet to them in the beginning is such a horrid person now. And you can't blame the victim for that. That is a type of manipulation. Unfortunately, it is a type of manipulation. It's really hard to accept the fact that someone you love is a horrible person, right? And in the sense of Mitsuki here, yes, she should have reported it. She should have not taken her account into it and not just outright lied, right? I'm not excusing what she did, but I am giving you an explanation on why it happened. She probably deep down knew that it was not a lie. It was not just something Bakugou made up, and it was true. And it was something that was truly happening, but she didn't want to accept it. Therefore, she didn't do anything about it and ignored it. And doing nothing is just as bad as doing the thing that happened, right? Because you had an option to stop it and you didn't stop it. It was Mitsuki's responsibility at that time to hear about the fact that a child was being abused, someone who she knew. It was her responsibility to report it, yet she did not. Just like it was the responsibility of many teachers to report the fact that Izuku had more bruises, that was being bullied, but they didn't. They were Quirkists. Mitsuki seemed to just genuinely not want to accept that one of her friends was an abuser. And unfortunately, I understand it. I mean, there's a lot of people who I was friends with who at first did not accept the fact that my manipulator was a manipulator, right? I told them, like, hey, this is a manipulator. And there was a certain person who was really deeply friends with that manipulator who literally outright told me that I was a liar, I was attention-seeking, and that I blew things out of proportion. That they heard her side of the story, and that they said that I was throwing this out of proportions, and that it was one singular hit, and it wasn't more than that. And that person did not want to hear me out, even when I sent them screenshots and literal recordings of my manipulator admitting the fact that they've hit multiple times and that they started to hit less, right? And that they took it too far. Literal confession, right? It was a voice message, so it was literally a screen recording of the voice message of her voice, right? Literally, this was years ago, right? 2-3 years ago, before the AI voice thing, so they couldn't even pin it on AI voices, which, by the way, I fucking hate AI voices and that stuff. No, that is gonna become so fucking fucked. Like, at what point are we not gonna be able to, have credible, evidence for stuff? Like, at one point, is that going to affect day-to-day life of everybody, you know? I mean, it's already affecting day-to-day life for everybody, but we're not going to talk about that, right? But even with that, that person did not want to accept the fact that my manipulator was a manipulator. Because, again, you do not want to, you don't want to believe that the people that you put your trust into are horrible people. It is just psychologically what it is. You don't want to believe that you were wrong in choosing who you can trust. Some people have a harder time, others people have a more easier time, right? But it's just a way of life. It's just what happens. It's just how it is, you know? It be how it is. Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds, have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.